Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, can the Maple Leafs strike a trade with the Edmonton Oilers or the Vancouver Canucks that would be beneficial for both sides? And I guess you can kind of consider this part one of a chain of videos that I am going to be making. This is not necessarily what I would like to happen the most, but it definitely is an option, and it's important to go through all of our options, right? So first up, we're going to start with the Vancouver Canucks, and I think a couple of you will be familiar with the trade rumor that Bob McKenzie put out there in and around this year's trade deadline that would have saw the Leafs send Tyson Barrie to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for a package involving, or the main piece would have been, Troy Stetcher. Now, obviously, the Toronto Maple Leafs won't have Tyson Barrie to offer the Vancouver Canucks, and their cap situation is going to limit them in what players the Maple Leafs could actually offer them next season. But Troy Stetcher, it's an interesting situation. Let's kind of look into some numbers and then the context behind him possibly being up for grabs. So at the very beginning of this Athletic article, it kind of explains why Vancouver might look to move on from Troy Stetcher. I don't know, situations change all the time. He might not be up for grabs now. But in November, the Athletic broke down how the 25-year-old's NHL resume had him in line for a potential raise in about the $3 million range because of arbitration leverage. And if you guys remember back to last summer after the Ottawa Senators Toronto Maple Leafs trade happened and the Cody Ceci contract went to arbitration, what happens is the arbitrator looks at the player, and most of the times it's just based off of ice time, right? Because you can present all the fancy stats in the world that you want. The arbitrator is going to look at the ice time and say, well, you played this player like a top four defenseman or like a top pairing defenseman, so we're going to pay him in line with comparable players that also are top four or top pairing defensemen. So Stetcher might not necessarily be worth about $3 or $3.5 million or so, or in that range, but he is a decent defenseman. So let's look at some numbers and let's put some context behind those numbers. So up on the screen right now, I have the entire right side from the Toronto Maple Leafs' defense from this season, and we're looking at these players' last two seasons, so the 18-19 and the 19-20 season. And when we're looking at Troy Stetcher, he had a decent campaign in the 18-19 season, and also a pretty good year this year for the Vancouver Canucks as well. And if we come on over to hockeyreference.com and we take a look at his zone starts here to see how his coach deployed him, to see how he was used in the amount of ice time that he played, you can see here the PDO was a little bit high here, but the Corsi relative to his teammates here, not too bad when you're considering that he played a lot of defensive zone shifts. And if we come back here and look at his 5-on-5 numbers here, it's actually kind of impressive that he was able to be that effective offensively, playing that many shifts in the defensive zone. So taking a look at his advanced analytics there and the context behind them, we can see how Troy Stetcher would be a decent little defenseman for $3 or $3.5 million or so if the Maple Leafs are able to snag him away from the Vancouver Canucks. Now, I can understand why Troy Stetcher maybe would not be the type of defenseman that you'd want the Toronto Maple Leafs to go out there and acquire. He's a little bit of a smaller guy at 5'10", 186 pounds, according to hockeyreference.com there. But you can see how he would be a nice little 4 or 5 defenseman in the Toronto Maple Leafs' lineup next season. Now, I know the arbitration thing might be a little bit annoying here, but for the Vancouver Canucks, and it would be interesting to see what the Toronto Maple Leafs would even offer them, because I don't think that they're in a position to take back any salary, really, because they only have $17 million to work with this offseason, and we know that they really want to re-sign Tyler Toffoli, and they also have Jacob Markstrom to re-sign there, and I can't see those guys clocking in together at anything less than about $12.5 or $13 million. They'd be really lucky to get them for anything less than that. And they have a couple of other guys here. Christopher Tanev is a guy they might move on from, but he's a guy that they could look at to bring back. They have a couple of other unrestricted free agents and spots to fill out in their lineup, as well as Jake Virtanen and Josh Levo. So you can see how that money would run really, really tight, and they might not have $3 or $3.5 million to give to Troy Stetcher. Now, if the Toronto Maple Leafs were to acquire this guy, or any team that acquires him, it would probably be smart to offer him a multi-year deal, because the multi-year deal, no matter which way you look at it, is going to be worth more than just the 1-year arbitration case that he would likely win at about $3 or $3.5 million or so. So if he takes a 3-year deal for about $2.5 or $2.75 million a season, it's more money in his pocket. He probably takes that deal. Now, when we're looking at being trading partners with the Edmonton Oilers here, there are a couple of names that we can take a look at Adam Larson is one of them, Darnell Nurse is another, and I will explain that, and of course, Matthew Bennett. Now, this is a little bit of a different tool here. This is HB Analytica, I believe, or HB Analytics. I will leave a link to it in the description of the video. It's a free tool that you can go on and explore these fun little color-coded player charts. Like I said, he didn't play a whole lot in the 1920 season, so I think what we're looking at here, even though these numbers are encouraging and we're looking at the market value there, I think this is a guy that plays bottom pairing minutes for the Edmonton Oilers, if that, and he excels in that role, and we already got a guy like Travis Dermott who can't handle anything more than just third pair minutes, and we also have Justin Holl here, so I don't necessarily think that it would make much sense to add Matt Benning at this point, but a couple of trade deadlines ago, Justin Holl was still a healthy scratch for Mike Babcock, so I can see how it would have made sense then. Adam Larson is an interesting name to me anyway. He makes just $4.1 million for next season and next season only. His contract expires after that. And he's not too bad on the defensive side of things when looking at these metrics or this player chart here. And he does play against top competition in Edmonton, so I would feel comfortable slotting him next to Jake Muzzin. He blocks shots, he throws some hits, he's a bigger guy. I wouldn't expect much offensively with this player. I don't think that he would be a guy that has the puck on his stick very much. Kind of just the guy that you don't really notice, but he's kind of there behind the scenes because, of course, when you're watching the game, you're watching where the puck goes, and Adam Larson doesn't carry it a whole ton. He also plays on the penalty kill, and I would be in favor of sacrificing a little bit of offense in favor of a little bit more defense. Now, what's something that the Toronto Maple Leafs should have an abundance of available this offseason? Wingers. What do the Edmonton Oilers need? Wingers. So you can definitely see how they could be trading partners here in this situation. I would not offer them Kasperi Kapanen for Adam Larson. I would maybe start with Andreas Johnsson and kind of see how we can move from there. I don't necessarily think that they would have to add a whole ton to that deal. If they do, you just say no and you walk away because there are other options. Now, I haven't watched a whole ton of Edmonton games here to really tell you if Darnell Nurse is really that bad defensively or if it's just the Oilers as a whole. I'm sure it's a little bit of both for his numbers to be that bad defensively, but the connection here is that Darnell Nurse used to play for the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds when Kyle Dubas was involved with that organization. And we do all know how Kyle Dubas does like his boys. Even when it came to a guy like Kyle Clifford, Dubas used to be the guy's agent. He's a very mean, tough customer to play against. He will drop the gloves. He will throw some hits. He will block some shots. But I think that at $5.6 million, that prices him out of being an option for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because if we take a look at what the Toronto Maple Leafs could possibly be looking at moving on from, or just swing guys that might make the team next year, if we're looking at their RFAs and guys like Mikheyev and Dermott, and then guys who you could trade off of the roster in Johnsson, Kapanen, and Justin Holl in a very extreme situation, we can see how the team might possibly look and how much cap space they would have to go and replace those players. And I know that there's going to be some people here, well, one of the top four guys isn't traded, so it's automatically garbage. I understand some people are going to feel like that, but I don't see the Maple Leafs making a move with one of those core four guys this offseason. Like I said in my previous video, we don't want them to hot potato this. MLSE is a business, and they are not going to hot potato some of their most valuable assets. The core gets another year, whether you like it or not, and whether I like it or not. Of course, by miracle of a hockey trade like the Ryan Johansson for Seth Jones trade that was made maybe like 4 or 5 seasons ago, if one of those comes available, go ahead and move one of the core four guys, but those types of trades don't come around every single offseason. But I am going to be ending off the video here, so make sure to like the video if you did like it and subscribe for more because more is always on the way. And guys, remember, I'm going to be looking at a whole bunch of options here. It doesn't just start and end with the guys that the Edmonton Oilers and the Vancouver Canucks might have available. And then by the end, I will reveal what I would like to see happen this offseason and break it all down because I do have a little bit of a plan myself here, and I talked it over with Andrew Pillock, and if you don't know who that is, I will leave a link to his YouTube channel in the description of this video. We FaceTimed for a little bit, and we put something together that I think would be really sweet, and I also talked it over with one of my other friends, Anthony Venna, who's a data tracker for the Mississauga Steelheads of the Ontario Hockey League. He also refs NYHL or GTHL games. I don't know, he wears a puffy shirt, and he blows his whistle every once in a while. So like I said, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, trust me, if this offseason sucks in real life, I'm going to be very, very critical of Kyle Dubas, but let's give him the next couple of months, see what happens, because like he said, the view is always changing and evolving. So let's see if he can, I don't know, do something with this mess. And if you are truly a Maple Leafs fan, you want Kyle Dubas to succeed, right? You don't want to see him fail. If you're rooting for him to fail, you're not a fan of the team. You know, if after the fact, it's okay to be critical after the fact, but you got to try to root for the guy. I know it's hard, but you have to.